So today I wanted to talk about Nutex Health, which is one of my favorite stocks in the market right now. And to give a little background on the company and the chart, Nutex Health basically owns and operates what they call these micro hospitals, which are these kind of smaller hospitals that they put in areas where there aren't any large city-like hospitals. And to kind of give a little background on the chart here, around 2022, they went public at a $7 billion valuation, but they were really struggling their first few years. And you go back to even the 1 year chart. At one point, they almost went bankrupt, but since around a year ago, they have really, really been on their game and just growing rapidly. And they kind of found the secret formula to how to make their business successful. And you see, they have great success over the last year. Now they're sitting at around a $1 billion valuation, and they're growing fast. And I've made videos on the stock before about how I think it is an amazing buy. First of all, because their financials are amazing and they're growing at insane rates. And second of all, because it isn't an AI company. And I think nowadays, a lot of the stocks that people look at are just AI companies. And right now, and at this point in the market, AI companies are kind of struggling a little bit to withhold their valuations. So I like this one because it is not, as a healthcare stock, I think healthcare stocks are very reliable and they're always going to be there and there's never going to be any doubts about them. And in my prior videos I made about Nutex, I talked about really the one main concern that investors had with Nutex was their inability to file their quarterly reports. They were supposed to file their Q2 earnings report in August, and you can see if you look back at the chart, we had a little run up here from around $80 to $85 to 111. Investors were anticipating a very good quarterly report, but they delayed that quarterly report, which was, investors obviously didn't like to hear, and the stock dropped all the way back down to around those 80 levels. And they made investors aware that these were just delays because they had some issues with classifying certain things as equity versus liability. So they had to go back and basically edit all their reports from the last year or so. So that caused the report to be delayed till what they said would be up to at least at maximum December 12th. So investors were expecting those reports December 12th. But a huge surprise came around, I think it was November 17th, when the company just randomly reported every single delayed filing. And you look here, this is their SEC filings page. On November 18th, they reported their full year report from 2024, which was amended, their Q2 report, their Q1 report, and now their Q3 report. So investors really love to see that. The stock jumped all the way from around $100 to now we're at the 135 level. And if you look at the 5-day ago chart, at one point it hit 155, a little bit of a pullback there, just I think because investors were just kind of taking profits and also because the market was struggling overall. But this is amazing news. I've been making videos about this stock, so hopefully you were able to get in before this huge jump. But I wanted to kind of talk about why, even after these earnings, even after this 35% jump, it's still an amazing long-term buy. This is my biggest holding by a pretty good amount, just because I see this as a multi-billion-dollar company. We're talking 10 billion, eventually 100 billion, because this company, I think their financials are set them up for a lot of success in the future. So to look into their Q3 report. They, for the first 9 months of 2025, they announced $723 million in revenue, which is an increase of more than 3x since last year. And they also are profitable now, which is obviously I love to see. I've talked about that before. They're not losing money anymore. They're up 50. Their net income of 59 million for the first 9 months is way up against a loss this time last year of 9.5 million. So you really like to see them making money. There's no issues or concerns about debt or about going bankrupt in that case. And their EBITDA is amazing, 243 million adjusted EBITDA versus 16.1 million. It's a 1,400% increase, which is just crazy. And then this is also great to see. They have a ton of cash, 177 million in cash. And this is a company that it doesn't really even need cash. Their whole entire business model is just building these hospitals and just operating them. So there shouldn't really be a reason for them to have a ton of cash. But with that cash, they can open more hospitals and just keep growing their business. So, I think this little period of when they had these struggles and then eventually overcame them told me a lot about this company. And some companies would just kind of throw in the towel and be like, we can't get these quarterly reports in on time, we're just going to delist and we're just going to go about our business being private. But Nutex seriously is dedicated to benefiting shareholders, and they don't want to just ditch shareholders like that, which is why this is immediately my favorite company in the market right now. It's my biggest holding. I would seriously urge you to buy this stock right now before it grows back to 155, which is, probably a 10% or so gain. Around a 10% or so gain, and eventually grows further. Before we were we had these legal struggles and these, certain short reports and whatever, we were at 175. And that was before they announced these quarterly reports that showed even more growth. So I think we could easily get back to that 175 level very soon, eventually break the 200 level. And then from there, it's really just how far you think the stock can go in the long run. I think this can be an $100 billion company. This is a very, very solid business model. And it doesn't relate to AI at all. And I do have my share of AI holdings, but it's kind of nice to find a hidden gem like this that has nothing to do with AI and that is just a really solid healthcare company that has really strong financials. So let me know what you think in the comments. I strongly suggest you buy this stock. I don't know how much longer it'll stay at these levels for. It could, but I think there's really no reason investors have to not pump this up to 175 and beyond. And, I really don't know what's going to happen in the near term future with this, but I really do hope that this has a really solid, what they call a short squeeze, because there's such a high percentage of shorters on this stock. So, if you are buying this stock, let me know. If you aren't for whatever reason, also let me know. If you're liking the videos, please subscribe and buy Nutex as soon as you can. See you next week.